In this short video, I want to try to answer a very common question I get from students, and that is, how do I study for an exam? So when it comes to studying for exams, I really think there are three different questions or three different ways I think about studying for exams if I were a student. And the first question is what? Like, what should I be studying? And if you're coming to class on a regular basis and keeping up with the material that we're covering in class and doing the homework and the practice problems and things like that, it's going to be obvious to you what I'm covering on the exam. And if it's not, I post a schedule for each unit, and that schedule gives you everything that we're going to cover before the exam, where that stuff can be found in the textbook, what the specific concepts are, and when the exam date is. So it should be fairly clear what is going to be on the exam. The second question is a little trickier, and that is, how do I study for an exam? And I think it depends on what you're trying to study. So in other words, if you're trying to study vocabulary terms and definitions, and you're basically doing a memorization strategy, then something like basic flashcards would do the deal most likely. And there's, that's not the only way to do it, but there's going to be strategies to memorize things. And you can find a myriad of study strategies on the internet, going and just searching for studying for accounting exams or studying for college exams or whatever. And there'll always be a variety of different people making videos about how they study or the best ways to study. And you can pick and choose and find something that works for you, hopefully. If you're trying to study how to work a problem, let's say for instance, we're doing dollar value LIFO, and you're trying to understand just how to work the problem because you're not really sure, then flashcards probably is not going to be the way to go there. What you're trying to study is a process. There's a series of steps that you have to follow in order to work the problem accurately. And so for that, you'll want to practice problems. You'll want to, work example problems out of the book, rework problems we've done in class, rework homework problems, work practice problems out of the back of the chapter, maybe go to AI site and have it generate practice problems for you. You can certainly do that. But you want to practice as much as you can. On the other hand, if you're trying to study in terms of getting a deeper understanding of the material, so in other words, memorizing stuff is important, but it is a superficial level of knowledge. And memorizing processes and steps is also important, but that doesn't develop a very deep understanding of the problems necessarily. So to develop a deeper understanding, you need to do more thinking. You need to spend more time with the material, and you need to be using a variety of strategies, whether it's memorizing different aspects of the concept, working problems through different practice problems that involve the concept, reading about the concept in the textbook, creating quizzes for yourself, writing stuff out on blank sheets of paper about concepts. There's a lot of different strategies, and there's no one size fits all. But what you want to try to do is you want to try to match how you study with what your goal is. And identifying the goal is an important step. Are you simply trying to memorize vocabulary? Are you trying to figure out how to work a particular problem? Are you really looking to dig into a deeper level of understanding about a concept? Now, the third question is, to me, just as important as the second question and the first question. And it's one that I think a lot of students don't spend time thinking about. And that is when to study. I think most students' instincts are to study the day before the exam or the night before the exam. And that's okay if it's an easy class and the material's pretty superficial. You're just memorizing stuff and you're not really seeking to get a deeper understanding. Then, studying the night before the exam is okay. And many of you have found that strategy of studying the night before the exam to be very successful in many other classes that you've taken in high school and college. But when you get to difficult classes that are covering complex material, difficult concepts, spending an hour or two the night before the exam studying isn't going to get it done. So what I would recommend is really being purposeful in deciding when you're going to study. So for instance, if I had a test coming up in this accounting class and I went to the course schedule, and in the course schedule there were 7 concepts listed that were leading up to this exam that we're getting ready to take, I would develop a strategy of studying one concept each day and then maybe having a couple of review days built in. So I would, from the test day, count back 9 or 10 days on the calendar and start studying a little bit each day. So the first concept I'd study on day 1, the second concept on day 2, and so forth. I'm not suggesting studying 2 or 3 hours a day for 9 or 10 days. I personally can't study for 2 or 3 hours at a time anyway. I'm talking 20, 30, 40 minutes tops in terms of review and studying each concept. Now, obviously, that's going to vary. There's some concepts that are easier than others, and some you may catch on easier than others. Some you may only have to study for 10 minutes. Others you may need to study for an hour or more. It just depends on the difficulty of the concept and how difficult it is for you personally. But I would be very purposeful with the idea of when you study. One of the things that I found is true for me about trying to learn complex and difficult things is that my brain needs time to process it. So if I know I'm going to be tested on it tomorrow, I can't start studying it today because my brain doesn't have enough time. And one of the things that I think you should consider is that when we're trying to learn something, our brain is spending time working on processing the information even when we're not thinking about it. So it's like a subconscious type of processing. And I've had this happen countless times in my life where I'm thinking about something involving my research or how I'm going to teach something or maybe a question I want to put on an exam. And, I just can't quite figure it out like in the moment that I'm thinking about it. And if I set it down and I just go on about my other daily activities and I stop thinking about it, I find that my brain is still processing it kind of in the background, so to speak. And then maybe it's the next day or 2 days later when all of a sudden everything becomes clear to me in terms of what I need to do. In other words, it takes my brain time to process it and figure it out. And so that's going to be the case not only with this class, but with your other upper level classes when you get into more difficult material. You need time to think and time to absorb, or what I call myself allowing the brain to soak in the information. It just needs time to soak in the information and absorb it. It's not going to happen in 30 minutes the night before the exam. It's just not. And if you think that's going to work, in all likelihood, you're going to be wrong and you're going to have poor test scores to show as a result. You need the time. I can't tell you exactly how much time, but I will tell you that it needs to be organized and it needs to be purposeful so that you can make adjustments going forward. So if you implement a plan with, 7 days of advanced studying for an exam, and you still don't quite get the results that you were hoping for, then maybe the next time you need to expand that out to 10 or 11 days. Maybe you need to extend your sessions from 20 minutes at a time to 30 or 40 minutes at a time. But you need to have a plan so that you can make adjustments going forward. That's a really big idea for me, is when I study and then I take the exam, I get the feedback from my exam score, and then I say, okay, I did X in terms of a study strategy for this exam thinking it was going to work. And if it worked, then I'm not going to change a thing because it's working. But if it didn't work, then I need to figure out, now that I know what was on the exam, I now need to think about how I need to adjust my studying going forward. Is it the when question? Is it more of a time issue and getting a better structure in my time in terms of studying? Is it a how question in terms of maybe I need to use other strategies that would be more beneficial? Maybe it's a what question. Maybe I just didn't study a lot of the right things that I needed to. But I use the exam score as feedback to figure out how to make adjustments going forward. And a big, big key to all of this is coming in to review your exams. If you don't come in to review your exams, then you don't know what mistakes you made. Yeah, you see the score on Blackboard. It says 78. Okay, so you got a 78. But you don't know what you messed up. And if you don't know what you messed up, how can you make adjustments going forward? The answer is you can't, right? You're just guessing, or you don't care. Which, I mean, if you don't care, that's fine. I mean, it's your decision. You're an adult. But the point is, if you're seriously interested in getting better at taking exams, then you have to take advantage of strategies and intentionality with preparing for the exams and then looking at the exams after you've taken them, and then using that feedback to make adjustments to try to get better as you go forward. I'm not saying it's a perfect science and you're going to go from 0 to hero in one exam, but I think, just like most other things in life, if you put in the time and the effort in terms of your preparation and then your analysis of the feedback afterwards, you are going to get better. All right, I hope that helps. Be sure to let me know if you have any questions.